I'm Aaron Bartuska, and welcome to Make More Movies, a split-tooth podcast where I ask DIY filmmakers what keeps them creating. Today's chat is with none other than Joe Swanberg, a filmmaker who has been a huge inspiration to me for almost 15 years. A pioneering figure in the mumblecore movement, Joe's influence on modern cinema cannot really be overstated. Since 2005, he has directed over 20 films, as well as acting in numerous projects, producing countless others, and making his own Netflix TV show. Now, after a brief hiatus, he is back with The Sun Never Sets, a new film starring Dakota Fanning, Jake Johnson, and Cory Michael Smith. We sat down to talk about this film and his upcoming projects, as well as the current state of the indie filmmaking world. Buckle up. This is a long one. Give it a listen. Hey Joe, how's it going?
I'm very well, thank you very much. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you for being here today. We just met the other week at your Build the Wall screening at Life World in Brooklyn. That was a lot of fun.
The rarely screened Build the Wall.
Had it been screened before?
We did. I think Kev was reminding me that we did a screening in Chicago of a very near fine cut of it, and then we made a few tweaks after that, and then I believe it has only been screened online since we finished it. So that was the first screening of the finished movie. And
Gotcha.
Yeah, it was really, really fun to watch, and also really cool to have Kent and Kevin there with me. And it's gotten me fired up to potentially show it here in Chicago and just do a few more kind of one-off screenings of it.
Yeah, that would be great. I mean, I know personally, I thought the only time I would ever see that is like on a laptop during a pandemic.
Yeah.
But the fact that it's screened in front of like an audience who seemed to be loving it was really cool.
Yeah, it was nice to hear laughs and feel like it had, that it could hold its own in a theater.
And that's kind of the last thing you made yourself film-wise. I mean, I know you've been working on a lot of things, but
yeah.
Up until this recent premiere you just had with The Sun Never Sets.
Yeah. I actually shot another film prior to The Sun Never Sets, another feature. So I am putting finishing touches on that one. It is an still untitled midlife crisis comedy drama about two guys in a band that was popular in the 2010s, and now they are hitting their 40s and having a sort of existential conversation with each other on their latest tour that feels like maybe an ultimatum-y, will we break up or will we stay together as a band kind of thing. So it takes place over a few days in Chicago as the two sort of founding members of this band are getting pretty sick of each other and wondering whether the artistic grind is still worth it in your 40s if, your glory days are behind you.
Is it still worth it?
Oh, yes. For me, absolutely. Absolutely.
I mean,
this film's not at all personal. What are you talking about? It has absolutely nothing to do with me. I don't relate to the subject matter one tiny little bit. And
The Sun Never Sets doesn't seem like it's that personal either. These are both just fiction films that you've made pulled out of nowhere.
Yes, it turns out I do not really have an imagination. I just take events from my life and feelings that I'm having and make movies about those.
Gotcha. And so was that film that has yet to come out but was shot before this new film, was that made with the same like scale, budget, like level of talent, or was that kind of more like run and gun like your old stuff?
Similar and dissimilar. It was a little more run and gun. We did it in fewer days, and I think we shot it in 14 days, something like that. I mean, that for me, it's like even my big movies, are like 18-day shoots or something. Like I just do shoot fast, but we shot it on 35 millimeter, and so it was big in a production sort of way. Like the choices we were making were kind of choices to be not super run and gun, but pretty run and gun for 35. So, we were sort of splitting the difference, and it was an incredibly ambitious schedule with the number of locations and actors that we had and scenes that we had. We were moving, 3 times a day or something every day. It was very, very run and gun in that sense. But, we were moving big 35 equipment around and stuff. And the film stars Mark Center and Shiloh Fernandez. And then Carly Shortino, who's also in The Sun Never Sets, is in this one. And I worked with her on Easy as well. She's a really good friend of mine. And then I'm trying to think who else is in the band one. Some Chicago people that I've worked with before. Callie Scrapp, who starred in an episode of Easy, is in it. But yeah, it's it didn't feel compromised. I certainly was. There weren't things that I wished we would have gotten because I had another lucky December shoot in Chicago, and it tends to be that the bigger shows and movies have sort of wound down by that time. And I've had luck twice now getting away with making fairly large indie productions during that period of time where people are willing to cut us deals on equipment, locations are amenable. So I was pretty stoked. I mean, we definitely got a big feeling movie and exactly what I was looking to do. And it's funny. It's like nice, I like watching the film, I've seen it, 10,000 times at this point, and I still actually enjoy its rhythms, and I feel like it moves really nicely. And so I can't wait. I think we'll send it to festivals early next year. We'll start, we'll sort of submit to Sundance, Berlin, South by Southwest, all those festivals.
Awesome. That's great to hear. And The Sun Never Sets is also quite funny, and I want to get into that in a second, but you're telling me now that you've had this kind of, major cast, I would say, film premiere at South by, and now you've already shot this other film before that is going to be coming. It feels like maybe you're on track to do another 2011, I know. Another have you caught the bug again?
For sure. Yes, I also got into filming something during COVID that I've been working on with Mickey Keating. He's been editing it. And we're making really nice progress on that too. So yes, of course, I go from no movies for a decade, and now I have 3 new projects all slamming on top of each other. I don't know what it is about that rhythm for me, but I definitely have another new movie that I'm hoping to make very soon, and another one that I'm hoping to make fairly soon. So yes, it is feast or famine. But, I'm rolling with it. I mean, I've just always tried to utilize the momentum when it's there and say yes to projects and just make as much as I possibly can. So I'm excited to be busy in that way again.
That's a great mentality, and one that I feel like a lot of filmmakers my age have kind of borrowed from you. So it's nice to have you back. And this film, The Sun Never Sets, I think by my count, that's your 21st feature that's been released, but I could be wrong.
No, I think that's right. It's somewhere around there. I also have these various other, I did this softcore gay, I wouldn't call it a porn, but
Blackmail Boys.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know if you're counting Blackmail Boys amongst those because I directed it under
It's under a pseudonym. I don't know. Yeah.
I acted in it under my name, but I directed it under a pseudonym.
Right.
And yeah, there's some other random weird things, but I passed the 20 mark for sure. I'm somewhere in the low 20s, and cool. I'm about to stack some more numbers on there. So.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, I mean, it depends on if are you counting VHS, are you counting Uncle Ken too, stuff like that also. But
totally.
Yeah, no, that's great, and it just had its South by Southwest premiere. I just had Noah Stratton Twine on the podcast.
Oh, yeah, cool.
Who did Parallel Pincher Point.
Oh yeah, I loved the movie.
And
those guys are cool.
He had nothing but nice things to say about you, but he also said the movie brought the house down.
Yeah, it played
awesome
really well at South by. It was very, very fun to be in that room. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, those actors are undeniable. Jake and Dakota and Cory are just so fucking good. And then the rest of the cast, like Debbie Ryan, Brandon Daly, Carly Shortino, Lamorne, and Anna Conkle are all total killers. So there's not a single scene in the movie where there's not some incredible actor, even if they're just in a few scenes. So I felt very lucky, really, really fun movie to make. And then to sit at South by and hear it with an audience, it was very, very exciting.
That's great. And you're feeding the hungry New Girl fans with those
totally.
webcam scenes.
Yeah, getting Jake and Lamorne on camera again. I know.
Jake has been a collaborator of yours for a while. This is his fourth collaboration with you, fifth if you count the 2 episodes of Easy, which I love. And he also really hasn't done anything like this since like Ride the Eagle, or I guess you could say his directorial debut was sort of in. I'm sure he took a lot of pointers from you with that as well. But like, who was itching more to make something? Like, did he come to you with this project? Did you come to him?
Like... I came to him for sure, but we had tried a few times in the intervening years. It was not a lack of, I guess the only period of time where there was like a lack of hunger was 2019. As I was wrapping up Easy, I was just exhausted. It was the first time that I felt like I just don't want to make a movie right now. I was also getting divorced, and so the combination of like wanting to just slow my life down a little bit to give space to the divorce. I have 2 kids. I was really nervous about, you just hear stories sometimes or something, where people just don't take time to process something like that and dive right into a new job or something. And I think I was afraid of disappearing off to somewhere for 3 or 4 months to make a new TV show or go do a movie, and kind of just not being around for my kids, not being around for myself, just to give myself space to process all of that. So I went into 2019 kind of feeling like, okay, I think I just want to chill this year and, focus on making something in 2020. And then I had a project set up, a TV project that I was weeks from beginning pre-production on when all the pandemic stuff started. And so I pivoted to a different project that I could do in Chicago quickly and in a small sort of way. That's the thing Mickey Keating and I are goofing with right now. But then for the most part, I was, kind of focusing on this horror slate and trying to get that up on its feet. I kind of decided maybe this is the right period of time for me to become Roger Corman. I've had this prolific directing career, and who knows, I'm not burning with a desire to make a new movie right now. So maybe that's a signal from the universe that I could just produce for other people or kind of engage in that way. So I sort of spent 2022 and 2023 conceptualizing and building this 5-film horror slate with the idea that we would shoot it like a season of TV, basically. And then we were able to pull that together at the end of 2023, and I spent like most of 2024 working on that project. So it's weird. It's like I felt very busy that entire time. I also opened a video store, and there were several other kind of like funny, weird projects that I was up to. But as I engaged on these 2 new features, it was very startling to realize it had been that long since I had done a movie, and that many years had just kind of zoomed by. So it's funny to be like itching again. So Jake and I like talked, on and off all through that period. We would pitch each other ideas every once in a while. But in like February of last year, I was going through a breakup and calling Jake. I don't know if I was fully pitching him a movie. We had a friend who died, Jeff Baina. So he and I started talking a lot again in January after Jeff killed himself, and, kind of got us back in the rhythm of, talking a couple times a week. And then, with this breakup going on top of that and various other things, we just started laughing again and, telling each other stories. And then Ashley, who produced the other feature that I am in post on right now, lives in Anchorage, Alaska. So when she called and she was like, okay, I have this window that opened up, we should do a movie in Alaska, it just very organically came together quickly. I started pitching the idea to Jake. Neither of us had ever been to Alaska before, and we just kind of got on the ball. And, we're not even imagining making a movie together in February, and by May we were in Alaska shooting. So just one of those nice situations where it just comes together quickly. And he's so good in it. I mean, I love him as an actor. We've made a lot of movies together.
He's hilarious.
God, it's funny to watch him. When I was editing the film, I just was dying laughing so many days, just texting him and just being like, dude, you are killing me. I mean, it's such a good performance. He's just so funny to me. And
the scene where he's trying to win back Dakota is kind of an all-timer.
I don't think I've ever laughed that much cutting a scene. Every take of his, I just was the faces he was making, the sounds he was making, I just was losing it. So yeah, it was such a nice feeling, and editing the whole film was a real pleasure. I mean, it just felt like they really got me. That I was able to use enough autobiographical stuff, but it also was enough removed from my life because it's Alaska and the character, Dakota's a construction worker, Cory's a pilot, Jake is like a wealth manager. I wasn't doing this autobiographical thing about a filmmaker going through a breakup and whatever, it's sort of like really was able to be like sharp and personal and pointed, but also feel like it had nothing to do with me. Nobody would ever like figure out who the real people were or any of that. I could just kind of like focus on telling the story. And it also changed a lot as the actors came in. I mean, they brought their own funny stories and things to it that we were able to incorporate. But I usually have fun making movies. Like every shoot of mine has been pretty chill and fun in its own ways. But yeah, just being in Alaska with this group and also being able to reclaim a lot of my collaborators from Easy, who, I met a lot of them when they were young and just starting out in the industry. And, since then they've all gone on to like really good, successful careers. So it's harder to get them to work on teeny tiny things because, they're all in demand in their fields. So it was cool to have a movie with enough budget and enough lead time that I could actually get, a lot of my like A team from Easy out to Alaska. So we were also just, sort of celebrating that the whole time and feeling the like pleasantness of being back together and working together again. So a nice little nest of like great actors and also a crew that I knew really well, and we just had a blast.
The fact that I now know that you directed that other feature before this one kind of negates this question, but it can go for both. Did you also write, direct, and edit that one?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So was there anything you had to like sort of relearn or like kind of like learn how to get back up on the bike in terms of those things with these two films?
On both of them, absolutely. I mean, they were shot within a few months of each other, 5-6 months of each other. So they feel very connected, in me just kind of shaking the rust off and getting back on set. And yeah, thankfully producing the horror slate was a very hands-on job. So I still had my chops a little bit in terms of, a 12-hour day and all the kind of grind of filmmaking. And in many ways, the producing part was even more work because I usually needed to be, up a little earlier and awake a little later than everybody else just to kind of tidy and do some, prep for the next day and things like that. Whereas a director, I can usually just like go home and pass right out.
I mean, you've always been like a producer and a director, especially on your smaller stuff. But did that incite? Like, were you thinking more as a producer when you were directing these last two?
I think that I always am. I think that I was, rather than the horror slate making me more in producer mindset, it kept me in the same producer mindset and sort of pulled me out of director mindset, But yes, even from the very beginning of the screenwriting process, I am always thinking like a producer and imagining the practicalities of shooting this stuff and imagining budgetarily, what I'm venturing into and things like that. So those all feel very connected to me and sort of have since the first movie, just because I was by default a producer on that one,
Was this one in terms of script, like, was this an email or was this like a more fleshed out thing? Like, I know you've done both versions where it's like a couple paragraphs, that's the movie, or we've actually written like a 40-50 page treatment.
Yeah, it was more fleshed out. I think that my outline for the band movie was 30-something pages maybe, and for the Alaska movie it was 50-something pages. So both substantial, though, in the grand scheme of things, compared to some of the extremely stripped-down movies I've done. Yeah, that's coming organically. I don't know why it is that I'm just more of a writer and more comfortable as a writer these days, but that just is the case, that it's a little easier for me to sit down and put it on paper ahead of time. And just as a storyteller, I think conceptually I'm a little more comfortable writing. And, I also understand the power and the benefit of pre-thought versus getting on set and, having some realizations that you can't actually accomplish because if you had thought of them earlier, you could do them, but it's too late now,
Right.
But I still love the spontaneity, I can't really like disconnect from the feeling of wanting to not really dig in until we're there on sets, and, you know, feeling out the tone of that day and the mood of the actors, and, you know, just kind of working with all those real elements. And so much discovery still happens on set. You know, we're still changing, totally rearranging the tones of scenes, or, you know, realizing midway through a take that what I had written is not really working and that we should just completely rewrite the scene. And so I'm open to all of that, but, you know, especially with the Alaska film and a shorter, you know, a sort of like typical 18-day shoot for me, there just is a lot to get done. You know, you are figuring out every day how to maximize, you know, what you're able to squeeze into that day. So yeah, just getting back into the rhythm of that, I would say that was the biggest thing, you know, but relearning and just getting used to the marathon of having to not only be present on set, but also to have your brain working, you know, like it's one thing to like wake up and drag yourself there and be like, okay, I'm here, I'm physically here. And it's another thing to be like, oh yeah, shit, I really have to like be on the ball for 12 straight hours every day for, you know, the next 4 weeks. But I love it. I mean, you know, as soon as I can get into that rhythm, it's very, I've done so much work and trained myself that it just becomes like riding a bike or something, you know. I'm kind of like, oh, okay, cool, I know how to do this. And then being surrounded by my team, you know, just makes life, you just kind of relax and feel so much more comfortable, because these people know me so well, and we've done so much work together that in many ways they can predict ahead of time what I will think about something or say about something. And so they're able to do a lot on their own and only bring me the like major questions. So they take a lot of work off my plate.
That's great. Yeah. Getting the band back together.
Totally.
I mean, you really haven't been on the festival circuit with your own film in almost a decade. Yeah. So did you find that the reception was, and I know, you know, I love your films, but some would say they were polarizing, you know, like some of them are. Like, did you find that there was a warmer reception now that you stepped away and came back? Or like, what, was there a difference there in how the film was received, how you were received?
Well, I have thankfully had a few over the years that have been received very well. Like Drinking Buddies, I really did feel that people liked the film, and that it was, I guess, you know, the feeling that I had at South by Southwest with Drinking Buddies was, whether people loved it or not, I felt that they all were respectful of it, paying attention to it, treating it seriously, talking about it like it was a real movie. Because that was the biggest change coming out of the old mumblecore days, you know? It was sort of like a lot of people were just purely dismissive of the entire thing, you know? They were just kind of like, I hate those movies. Like, they suck.
I'm very relieved that you said mumblecore, because now I can say mumblecore.
Oh, yeah. It's the word. I mean, it won, you know?
Right.
So that shift felt palpable to me probably around 2011, when Art History, Silver Bullets, and Uncle Kent were sort of playing around. Like, Sundance took one of my films for the first time. Berlin took Silver Bullets and Art History as a double feature. I sort of felt like, oh, okay, cool. I'm not like a castaway, you know. I'm being accepted and legitimized in some sense by the like normal side of the industry. And then Drinking Buddies just, you know, exponentially boosted the feeling of like, oh, okay, this guy can make a real movie. But I very much felt that the only real difference was that, you know, when it's Olivia Wilde, Anna Kendrick, Jake Johnson, and Ron Livingston, I basically could do exactly what I had been doing before, and everybody...
People paid more attention.
...was like, oh, it's a real movie now. I was kind of like, I guess. I mean, we did it the exact same way, but if you say so. So then it was kind of fun, because the period that followed that, like 2013, 14, 15, I really felt like very free to be playful and loose and experimental and mess around, because I was like, oh, okay, cool. I've somehow like stumbled onto the right side of the critical line, and, you know, I'm in a different kind of way or something. But I would say the big difference this time around was definitely on the reviews side and the sort of critical side. The skepticism feels gone or something. Like, I feel like Drinking Buddies' positive reviews were kind of like, I like this movie, but jury's still out on this guy. We'll, you know, we'll see. And with this new one, I was kind of like, oh, they're comfortable just liking the movie. Like, they don't have to couch it with a caveat of like, but, I'm not a fan in general at this point. And I think because I've made over 20 features, even the people who really only liked my stuff from Drinking Buddies on still have enough movies now that's like half my filmography or something, so even the like second wave fans are, have a substantial body of work to feel like confident about their opinion at this point. So it was kind of interesting. I'm always braced at a film festival for some sort of backlash or negative response. And with this one, I sort of like, after the second screening and the second set of Letterboxd reviews and all of that, I was like, oh, nobody's like coming for our throat. Like, there's no subcurrent of people who are like, I hate this movie sucks.
Right.
And I think on all my previous films, there has been that segment of people who, no matter what, are just like, nah, this guy is terrible.
Well, all those second wave fans they're bandwagoners anyway. We don't acknowledge them. But cool. Well, hey, congrats on all the success. I can't wait for it to come out and for people to see it. I want to get a little bit into what you were doing. I'll call it on your time off, but really we know you were working, you were producing, and running a video store and all these other things. Analog video, right?
Yeah, yeah.
In
which is still going. It's at the Davis Theater in my neighborhood now, and it is still an active video rental store. You can rent Blu-ray, DVD, and VHS. And
is it still half a pizza shop, or did that go away?
No, I got busted at the pizza shop first, so it started at the pizza shop. And it only survived there for a few months, and then I moved it a few doors down to my office. And then I got busted, twice there in varying degrees of seriousness. And then it went dark for a while. Then I partnered with Ryan Graveface and we reopened it at the Music Box Theater in Chicago, next door to the Music Box. And we knew that was going to be like a 6-month pop-up version. And just as we were running out of time there, I pitched it to the Davis, and Brittany at the Davis loved the idea and jumped on board. And then we, moved it over there in like November of last year. So I am hoping it is in its final home right now. I mean, moving an entire collection of movies 3 times was not fun. So
yeah,
just for my poor old back, I hope that, it can live at the Davis for a long time. But it's also a really cool spot for it. The movies feel good in there, and being connected to a 3-screen movie theater is kind of perfect.
No, yeah, that's great. And you're seeing that happen more often too. I mean, like Kim's Video lives in the Alamo Draft House in Manhattan now. It's it's a good place for that stuff to be. Yeah.
Totally. Cool.
But in that time, you were doing that, but you were acting in all these mainly horror films, it seemed like.
Yeah.
Although I got the screener for Zach Schnitzer's Loafers, which I'm excited to check out.
Cool.
But you were acting in those, and then, the first big Swanberg news I remember seeing in like 4 years was this 4 or 5 picture horror movie deal that you did with Yale Entertainment. So just talk to me a little bit about, 2 of those are out right now, Kenneled and Monkey's Magic Merry-Go-Round, directed by Jay Burleson and Aidan Leary, respectively. Those are on Screambox. And there's 2 or 3 more coming out?
There's 2 more coming.
Okay.
A film called Thingy, directed by Jay Matthews of the band Boy Harsher. And a film called Yellow Eyes, directed by Jesse Corman. So those will be released, I believe, July and August. And then we produced a 5th film as part of the slate, but it is not included in this Screambox deal. It's a film called Hell Dorado by Kansas Bowling. So... that one will, just maybe do the festival circuit or play around. So it did end up being 5, and we shot them back to back, January through July of 2024.
And how'd you end up coming across these filmmakers? What was the selection process? That makes it feel very like, I don't know, reality TV show.
Yeah,
but how'd you stumble upon them? Because I know some of them have only done like a short film, and others have done like a couple features.
Fairly organically. So I built the slate conceptually with no movies in mind, you know, the concept of shooting indie features like a season of television, because I had come off of 3 years of doing easy and I had loved the rhythm and pace of television. And I just thought, man, the hardest part about doing a little no budget indie film is like raising the money and getting it up on its feet. And then you shoot it for like no time at all. And then, you know, sort of all that work you did just sort of goes away on the last day of shooting. Mm-hmm. So what if we tried to raise all the money at once and then basically got something up on its feet and then just ran, you know, all 5 movies with the same crew and as much of the same infrastructure as possible, reusing everything from project to project. And, you know, it took about a year of just building a budget for that and imagining what that should look like, you know, talking to potential partners and just sort of figuring out like what is the best way to do this, what's the right size of the movies, what's the right structure for a schedule, all that sort of stuff. And then Yale jumped on board late 2023, and I was suddenly like, oh, right, I need movies. You know, conceptually, I put all this time into the skeleton and the framework, and now none of that matters at all if the movies are not good. You know, no audience is sitting there going like, wow, that movie sucked, but how cool the structure they
Joe
built.
did so much planning for this. That's
exactly.
awesome.
Exactly. It's like completely irrelevant. So Monkey's Magic Merry-Go-Round came to me through a woman named Kendall who worked at Great Escapes, which is also a partner, the foreign sales agent and partner on the project. And I believe that Kendall knew Aiden and Caleb from school in Boston, Emerson. And I read the script, and it was a contained horror that takes place on a sort of Mr. Rogers neighborhood type set. And I thought, okay, cool. We can do this really, really small and then just put, you know, a lot of our money into building this set and then do the rest like uber cheap. And then it'll look, you know, kind of big. And also I knew we would start shooting in late January or February in Chicago, which is like bitterly, brutally cold. And I thought, okay, this will also all be indoors, which will be a really nice way to get us started, and then we can ease towards the summer and, you know, sort of like move outside more and more with each project. So I did a Zoom with the filmmakers, and I sort of asked them at first, I kind of thought we would do these movies in the like $100,000 to $200,000 range, maybe, you know, closer to 2 on some, closer to 1 on others, but generally around like 250,000. But I was also like, I wonder if we could do this one for really, really small to start off and then sort of pocket some money that I can make the other ones feel a little bigger. So I asked them, I was like, okay, what if I told you guys that we could do this movie in 10 days for $60,000? And they were both like, yeah, sure, like totally. And I was like, okay, that's the right answer. You know, like now they're going to be thrilled when we have $150,000 to do in 12 days, you know? So I just loved their attitude. I just thought they were, you know, real, you know, young, optimistic hustlers, you know, just really ready to like dig in there and work hard. And also, you know, they were not just out of film school, but being only 1 year out of film school, they had gotten enough of, you know, work life and experience and whatever else to feel like, oh, it's a real treat to get to go to Chicago and like do a feature, you know? And so I signed them up and basically told them like, well, the good news is we have more than $60,000 in more than 10 days, but I am going to treat yours like this little one at the beginning of the process. I'm going to like skimp and save as much as possible on this one to try and buy ourselves a little bit of cushion that I can spend and potentially boost the others. And they're like, okay, works for us. So we did theirs first, and then they both stayed on and worked on, you know, across the rest of them. Like they were supposed to just come to Chicago for a month, 5 weeks or something, and they ended up being in Chicago for 6 whole months because Aiden AD'd like the rest of them, and Caleb like DIT'd and sort of did like file management and editing on the rest of them. So a lot of cool things like that happened where I just was like meeting young people. And then Kansas Bowling I really wanted to work with. I'm a huge fan of her movies, and her film Cuddly Toys was sort of connected to the launch of the video store. Like I was secretly screening that movie in Chicago back in 2021. And
cool.
She recommended Jay Burleson to me. And so he pitched me a bunch of projects. I saw the same fire in him, you know, the same sort of hungry attitude. And then Jay Matthews I've been friends with for probably since 2019 or something like that. I met her when they came through town on a Boy Harsher tour. We had some friends in common, and we stayed in touch over the years. And she comes out of a film background. Like she, you know, was an AD or worked in the AD department on like Good Time, the Safdie Brothers movie. And she worked on, what was Tony Campos's movie about the reporter that committed suicide on TV? Christine. Christine.
Yeah.
She like worked in the AD department.
Was it Chris? Well, there's two, because there's the other one with Caitlin Shield, and I always get
that one's
confused.
called Kate Plays Christine, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this one's just Christine.
The Christine one. She worked on that. You know, she was sort of working on these like big-ish indies, movie star driven kind of indies. So.
Well, and also The Runner is such a good proof of concept.
Exactly.
Like, you don't need much more than that.
Totally. So I was kind of like, dude, if you want to do one, you're in. I mean, you know, I would love to produce a movie for you. And then Jesse Corman came through Yale. He was a filmmaker that they had worked with on various things over the years, and they really wanted him to do his first feature. So that was kind of how the 5 directors came together. And then there were other writers, like Harrison Moore wrote Kenneld, and he also came through. Kendall, the same person who connected me to Aiden, and or someone over on the Yale team, maybe Madeline or somebody else over there. But so yeah, it was cool. I mean, a sort of like a nice rolling rhythm to the whole thing. And then, you know, people who came in and shined on one project, I would try and retain them and keep them around to help out. A lot of the same actors, kind of ping pong between the different movies. So it felt really fun. I mean, it was a very like, you know, wild and crazy 6 months of just, you know, scrappily trying to do these movies. It was invigorating, exhausting, fun, challenging. I mean, the whole range of feelings. Certain productions, you know, and often those are like not even in connection with each other. Like some of the ones that were the most difficult, labor intensive and challenging to produce are also, you know, the lightest and most fun to watch. And, you know, sometimes when the shoot is just super easy, you know, you're then struggling with footage later or whatever. It's like you don't always get all the good and the bad in the same places. So, but it completely like lit a fire under me. I mean, you know, there was nothing like being on 5 different sets, you know, like directly
to make you want to be
months.
back on your own.
Yeah, I was like, I was kind of like, oh, okay. I thought maybe I was retired as a director, but no, I got to do this a little more.
And the 2 films that are out, I mean, I can't speak for the others, but the 2 films that are out are great, and, you know, they're really fucked up, but also utilizing, I mean, you can tell they're low budget, but they're doing low budget smart.
Yeah.
Right? They're not trying, it's not about like an alien invasion or a car chase or anything. It's like, Monkey's Magic Merry-Go-Round is literally all like on that one set. And filmed in the 4:3, which helps. With a tour de force central performance. I mean, oh, so good.
That, you know, Michael Gillio in that movie is just unreal for a tiny movie like that, to have him to sort of grasp onto, and he was just so committed and so deep in it. And, I also think Kenneld is great. I just love how it looks. I love how it moves. I love all the central actors in it. I just think it's a really, really cool project. So yeah, I was thrilled. I mean, it introduced me, it got me like, you know, jazzed up creatively again. It also got me back on sets where I was meeting some younger, talented Chicago crew who I've then stolen to work on my stuff since then. And so everything about it was like exactly what I was hoping for. And even being on Screambox was kind of where I was hoping the films would end up, like from the very beginning. I thought, I love the Terrifier movies, and I was like into what Cineverse was up to with theatrical and stuff. So it was just like a nice, interesting experience to kind of dive back into heavy production that way. And I was able to balance office work with on-set work, like on the weeks, like my ex-wife and I do 50-50 with the kids, which typically is like week to week back and forth. And so I was able to kind of like be in the office, being that kind of producer on the weeks that I had the kids and still pick my daughter up from school and do all of that. And then on the weeks that I didn't have them, I was able to be on set and be a little more hands-on. So it was also like a nice job to build for myself to like stay active, but also, still sort of be a stay-at-home dad.
Great. Can you see yourself implementing this, sort of season of TV strategy into like your own work going forward? I mean, I know basically you did that with Easy, but with feature films.
100% again, or even with another TV show. Like I'm sort of over my tiredness in a way that I could like start to imagine again show running a show or taking on a big project like that. So yes, every trick I learned on the horror slate has already been applied on these two most recent movies or will be soon,
Between this stuff and your next VHS and all your acting, like how much is horror paying your bills right now? Like I feel like horror is keeping the lights on.
Yeah. I feel intensely grateful to be like a person within the horror community enough that I do just get cast in things, like I'll just get emails from people basically being like, I've got a one-day role for you. Like, do you want to come out and do this? And I also love horror films myself. Like I am, a big fan. So it's been very, very cool. But I have yet to have any really like lucrative anything in the horror world because it is also the most low budget space. It's like those things go hand in hand. So typically even the sort of bigger horror films that I'm doing them at the most bare bones, friend rate or budget level possible. So, but it is keeping me in the world, even if it is not putting money in my pocket. It's like these horror films are, Your Next is like easily the thing I've done that's been seen by the most number of people. I mean, way more than people have watched any of my movies, And same with VHS and times I'll show up in Ty West's movies and stuff like that. I'm kind of like, if someone didn't know me and you just like looked at my IMDb, you'd be like, oh, this guy's famous for being a horror actor, I don't even think my directing career would like rate on the list. So it's pretty funny. I mean, I certainly like coming out of film school, never in a million years would have been like, oh, I'll be like recognized for acting in horror films, But I love it. I mean, I'm so grateful. Truly. It's really awesome.
I want to pivot a little bit to filmmaking in general. Well, if I can talk about myself a little bit, I kind of grew up watching your stuff. I discovered, I think through Baghead, I discovered Mumblecore. And then I think the first thing I saw from you, because I was a horror fan first and then like an independent cinema fan second. So I think the first thing I saw of yours was Silver Bullets.
Cool.
And then just kind of like went down. I might have torrented it or watched it on like a porn website. I apologize, but I've made up for that.
It's okay.
I bought the Vinegar Syndrome.
Oh yeah, I love that release actually. That was a very.
It's so good, yeah. But yeah, no, I just started watching this stuff like probably too young, but it really made filmmaking seem like super super attainable. And I feel like that's kind of like your status amongst people my age now. It helped that I went to a film school where, Alison Bagnall and Courtney Stevens taught at Drexel. And so like I met both of them and I was able to be like, whoa, you're in this guy's films. But then also even like when I lived in Brooklyn for a little, I met Justin Zuckerman, who you screened Yelling Fire in an Empty Theater. And the only reason I know Bruce Longo is like, because you were in Coven, right?
Yeah.
So like, and I feel like you, especially in the 10 years or the 7 years that you were kind of on hiatus, air quotes, like you have become this very influential figure to people around, creators specifically around my age. The 7 films in 1 year is like infamous and stuff like that. And so I'm just curious, like, was any part of you, maybe this is an impossible question, but was any part of you aware of like the impact of what you were doing? Like that would be something that like the next generation of filmmakers would look at and be like, oh, I can make films tomorrow. Today.
Well, I think that South by Keynote was maybe the first time that I was aware that I was even in a position to be giving advice or talking from a knowledgeable perspective. You know, up to that point, I felt like, dude, I'm just figuring this out myself. I mean, every year is different. I couldn't tell you what to do. I'm like, I don't even know what I should do next year, you know? And I was broke, and it was very, very like, piecemeal, month by month, that I was putting my career together and staying alive, basically. And then, that turn really happened around Drinking Buddies. And by like 2015, 2016, I actually felt like, oh, cool. I like lived through a moment. Like I actually like saw with my own eyes and participated in this thing that might actually like be meaningful or significant. And it felt very obvious that Greta and Barry and some of these filmmakers, David Lowery, were like really heading off to like stratospheric film industry careers, that they were like, oh my God, like major studio directors, basically. And I just thought, God, that's so cool that we all were like scrapping it out together, like in the trenches. Adam Wingard was directing Godzilla versus Kong, but I was like, dude, Adam literally used to live on my couch, like, cause he was, had nowhere else to stay. Like, it's so funny. And so I always felt connected to the reality that, your fortunes and your careers could change so much in a few years, that you could go from basically like barely able to survive to a multimillionaire directing like a huge studio film in 18 months, And I also felt, I guess, like the artists who really, really inspired me coming up were not really like rich, famous, mega successful filmmakers. It's like I was, inspired by John Waters and Jim Jarmusch and Spike Lee and, Hal Hartley, like these, sort of scrappy Susan Seidelman, like this late 80s New York, like no budget wave. And, John Pearson's book, Spike, Mike, Slackers, and Dykes was kind of my holy grail book when I was in high school and college. It was the one that I would reread all the time and also give to all my friends and be like, you have to read this book. Like, it shows you that you can go from like making a no budget movie with your friends to actually having a career. You just got to do it. So I think I was geared towards always hoping that the sort of smallness of those early movies would be inspirational. But I didn't feel it or really notice it until I went to the New Next Festival late last year, like October 2025. And that was the first time I, like, at the end of the day was actually sitting there thinking like, wow, I've actually had a lot of conversations with young filmmakers today who brought up Hannah Takes the Stairs and LOL and Nights and Weekends. Like, that's crazy. And then the next day, it happened again. And then the next day, it happened again. And I was like, holy shit, actually, like, those 07, 08, 09 movies, like, made an impact. Like, I've, 3 days in a row now met a bunch of people in their 20s and 30s who want, they're not talking about Drinking Buddies or Easy. They're talking about, the really small early films. And so it's been less than a year that I've been able to like wrap my head around the idea that those actually like gained some sort of foothold, and that the like 2011 stuff, which I thought had disappeared off the face of the earth, I mean, it was hard enough to get them booked at the time. And then I was kind of like, my friend Olivia here in Chicago, like wrote a piece about art history in the Zone. And I was like, oh my God, like these movies didn't disappear. Like people actually found them on the internet and passed them around. And, they're still, they've kind of like got their own second life now. So it's been really a nice, pleasant, discovery. Of course, I always hoped that interviews I gave and things that I did would be helpful, but I also think that, the world is hard enough now. The economy is sort of very similar to what it felt like in 07, 08, like we've cycled around 20 years and we're sort of back into what feels to me similar conditions to the ones where me and all those guys made those movies. So it makes sense to me as well. It feels like a generational, passage of the torch has sort of happened or something, but I couldn't be more thrilled. I mean, I think all young people should be just grabbing cameras and making movies with their friends. I mean, that is the only way to get better at this job. You just got to do it and do it and do it and do it and do it. So I love it. I mean, I'm very proud that there's that sort of lineage now with those movies, and that there's, you know, a sort of wave of people that are gaining, you know, can sort of watch it and go like, oh, basically, like, if these guys could do this for like $20,000 back in 2007, like, we can definitely make a movie. Like, it's not rocket science.
Right.
So that's awesome.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, there's a lot of people, the work deserves to be seen, but there's a lot of people doing the work of getting it out there, like Vinegar Syndrome, and
Totally.
like, you know, Eric Hatch at New Next is great.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, totally. I mean, you have taught a lot of people that just pick up a camera mentality. I think, like, you were talking about your holy grail. Like, I feel like a lot of people my age's holy grail is that keynote speech and the Duplass one from the year before,
Totally.
the Calvary Isn't Coming one.
Yeah. Mark really set the tone. I remember I wasn't at South by, or if I wasn't at Mark's speech, but in the days after he gave that keynote at South by, it really occurred to me, like, oh, you actually can, South by is a big enough platform now that you actually can talk to people. So when Janet asked me to do the keynote, I really had Mark's inspiration to be like, oh, people might actually pay attention to this. It's not just like gonna disappear into the void. Like, if I can use this hour to say some meaningful things, South by is, you know, has a big enough push and reach that, you know, it will stay online and it won't just disappear. So it's cool that I still see things linking to it, like, you know, all these years later and stuff.
Yeah, I've shown parts of it to my students at times, just both of those speeches, because I think they're so beneficial. It's interesting though. So I saw that Mark did a interview with Variety like a couple months ago, like a follow up, where they brought up that speech, and he was like, yeah, I don't know if that's still true. You know, the marketplace is flooded. It's unhealthy. There's a lot of uncertainty. And, you know, the crux of your whole speech was more about money and, you know, make the film, use it to pay to make the next film, like sell it for enough, like whatever.
Yeah.
And that speech spanned roughly the first 10 years of your career.
Yeah.
Now it's been 10 years since that speech. So I'm wondering, like, do you think that kind of pipeline for career growth is still, like, possible? Is the industry still built in a way that young filmmakers can still thrive in that way that you did? Not saying it was an easy course, but like, does that still exist?
If I were to give the speech again today, I think the only thing I would modify is that I would add theatrical self-distribution as a bigger component. But yes, otherwise, I think, you know, the kinds of advances that I was getting for my films at the time, $10,000, $20,000, those are still there. Mm-hmm. And I 100% still stand by taking your own money and putting it into your own projects, owning as much of your work as you possibly can own. And I just have noticed that in the interim, this cool new avenue has opened up where you can, like, book your film and take it on tour. And I think if you make a $5,000 or $10,000 movie, you can make your budget back just from your theatrical tour, like ticket sales. I mean, that did not feel true in 2005, and did not feel true in 2015. Mm.
Is there still? I mean, the name of this podcast is "Make More Movies," right? That's kind of, if that's taken from anyone, it's you and Andrew Bujalski, right? Like, that's like the whole mantra of the movement, and I do believe in that. But do you think there's anything to the oversaturation? Do you think the festival circuit is still, like, the best way to get those things out there? Like, basically, how, when there's so much stuff, when so many filmmakers are taking all of your advice, like, how do you get seen? How do you get discovered?
Well, I don't think getting seen is the challenge. It depends on who you mean by discovered. Discovered by networks and distributors and studio people, or discovered by movie watchers. So
either way, both.
yeah. Well, getting discovered by movie watchers is easier now than it ever has been. The pathways through which to make your film available and accessible are, you know, greater than ever. I think moving up into the industry was never easy and is still not easy. You know, like, nothing, and that did not happen for me until my 13th or 14th feature, you know? So,
right.
the one thing I like about my career and my model, and that I can say to young people is, I don't even want to hear you talk to me about how your career's going until you're 13 features in. Then come talk to me about strategy and should I get
Some people don't even get there.
Well, that's their problem, you know. Nothing is stopping them from making 13 no budget features, you know.
Right.
And I was working a day job and, you know, taking my money from my day job and putting, you know, it's not like I just immediately had a slush fund to make movies, you know. It was sort of like a very slow accumulation. But and also a decade of like being broke, you know, even when I started to do the bigger movies, you know, the money did not catch up until a year or two later. So, you know, when I was sort of like touring and going around with drinking buddies, I still couldn't afford flights or hotel rooms, you know, the distributor had to pay for that or the festival had to pay for that. Like, it wasn't until maybe like the next year that I was kind of like, oh, okay, great. I actually have like a little bit of a safety net. And at this point, you know, I'm 44 and the safety net is basically gone. I mean, I took all my savings and buffer zone from Easy and then sort of, lived on that to take a little time off and sort of orient myself. So I'm still sort of coming at the industry and playing the game the same way I was in 2012 or something, you know, trying to own as much of my own work as possible, taking every penny I have and putting it into the next movie. You know, it's at a bigger scale, but it's the exact same, you know, mindset and mentality for the exact same reasons. Basically like owning your old work so that it provides a little bit of a buffer zone through the uncertainty of being a freelancer, basically. So yeah, I mean, I just, you know, grind. There is no, anytime I'm encountering a filmmaker who's like, it's so tough, you know, I made these 3 features and one of them played at South by and one of them played at Sundance and I don't understand why I'm not, you know, up for these jobs or whatever. I'm just kind of like, you are talking to the wrong person right now. Like, only 3? What's going on? I mean, you got a long road ahead of you still before I want to hear that it's not going how you imagined it was going to go or something. And, you know, and then it's still going to slip out from under you even when you think, I did it. Like I ascended up into the zone. It's like, we are good with you for like a year and a half before you got to reprove everything, you know, from the baseline again.
Only as good as your last show.
100%. There was every single year that many new, talented, hungry, ambitious, better at tech than you are, smarter than you are, new generation of filmmakers who also want it just as bad as you want it. So, you know, but that's the beauty of it. I mean, that's the only thing that's going to keep this industry interesting and thriving, is that it is a very cool industry. Everyone wants to work in this industry. It's, who doesn't want to make movies for a living? Like, it's the best.
Right.
And, you know, so I love it. I mean, I like that trial by fire attitude. I love that you're only as good as your latest movie. But, you know, you're saying to me that there is this other thing going on too, which is that even when I was like low in my creative output, the previous stuff that I had done was only just filtering through and being discovered and claimed by people. So, you know, it's nebulous. Like, it's not a straight line. You know, there's like all these other interesting things going on. And I think that I feel very grateful that I, you know, at like a high school age, discovered John Waters, Robert Crumb, Tom Waits, discovered, I'm trying to think who else are like my role models of like, I don't know, there's a couple other these like march to the beat of their own drum artists, like chameleons, reinvented themselves many times over. Bob Dylan, if I didn't already say him, like, you know, just such cool, interesting careers where you're kind of like, you just get these like little eras of like, oh, and then they were doing this and it was like so different from the thing they were doing before. And they did that for a couple albums or a few books or something. And then they like switched over and did this for a while, and then they did this, and so I guess I always like admired and was influenced by these interesting chameleon-like artists that just shifted around and never felt like they had to copy their last success, and would go through eras of like obscurity, you know, kind of like from huge popularity to like a string of albums or a string of movies, everybody was just kind of like, meh. Oh, Altman, that's another one. Like, that guy goes through like periods of 5 or 6 years where none of the movies are financially successful, critically successful. And then he makes another banger. And then suddenly everybody's like, oh, dude, Altman's the shit. And then he'll do another run of a couple popular movies, and then he'll kind of go drift off into obscurity for a few more. So that always sounded romantic to me. I wasn't like, oh, poor Altman, he's a genius, so he should always be hailed as a genius. I was kind of like, oh, it's cool. It sort of forces him to like re-up with himself every decade and, sort of like refine the fire and find new subject matter, try new things, work with new collaborators. Like, so yeah, I feel like for me, that's still the guiding light. Like, I'm 44 right now. Like, hopefully when I'm 84, I'm still like, doddering around trying to like turn out a new movie. And, hopefully there's just like all these weird movies behind me where you'd be like, what was up with that one? I'd be like, oh, I don't know. That was a crazy year. Like, I was living in this place and I met this guy and we just tried it, like, yeah. And I've never really had like a strategy that goes further than like 6 months out or something, like I don't have goals like that where I'm like, oh, I really would one day love to do X. I'm just kind of like, I don't know, man. I mean, every day provides some interesting new person that I meet or article I read or movie I see or something that for one reason or another like lights something in me, and I'm kind of like, oh, that would be fun. And they really come together when like enough, when me plus Jake plus Ashley plus somebody else all are on the same page at the same time, and then it's like, okay, boom, that one's going. Like, let's do it. Yeah. The rest of it is just kind of trying to stay alive, trying to stay interesting, trying to expose myself to as much stuff as possible, meet as many cool people as possible, and just see what percolates,
Well, it's good to know that the number's 13, because that means I have 8 to go.
Yeah, exactly. When you get to 13, you can like, bellyache to me and I'll take you seriously. I'll be like, all right.
Okay. I'm about to have the most prolific next 3 years you've ever seen anyone.
That's when I'll be like, all right, you got the blues for real. Like, I'll let you, sing me your blues now. Like,
right. I also just wish you could see like me and a bunch of other film majors like crowded around a laptop in 2018 watching art history.
Yeah, cool.
Like, I don't think you thought that would be happening when you were making that film.
Yeah.
But it was, and there was beer and drugs involved.
Yeah,
and it was
yeah,
a great
I
time.
love it.
So yeah, the stuff took off.
Yeah. That was the dream, but it's nice to hear that it was, coming to fruition on a few campuses.
It was at Drexel, that's for sure. Bouncing off of what you just said, I want to talk about Frank V. Ross a little bit, because Split Tooth loves him. I think Brett and Craig Wright are like his biggest champions, at least on the internet right now, or for the past few years. You just had lunch with him. You've obviously collaborated with him a lot. And, that's someone who's made 6 features, and I think all of them are phenomenal. And those have just never really caught on in the way that, like some people from your group have gone on to like, insane success, like Greta.
Yeah.
Or like, David Lowery with Disney and Duplass and all that stuff. And then you are also very successful, and I think the more valuable thing, which is more prolific. But, Frank's films, I would say, are as good as any of these, and they're criminally underseen. So, like, what would you say then? Like, someone who has gone through the same trajectory as you has these films that just, like, are not as appreciated as they should be. Like,
yeah. Well, I would say...
what do they do there?
I would say a few things about it. Frank is a suburban working class filmmaker taking on the suburban working class in his films. And at the end of the day, the festival audience and the sort of sophisticated indie art house audience is primarily an upper class, overeducated group of people that is not that excited about real movies about the suburban working class. It's just not... His movies are just always have trouble breaking because they're just not hip in the way that like urban movies are hip, Like something like Drinking Buddies is just hipster. Frank can come be in that movie and play a brewer and bring some like, working class reality to that movie. But at the end of the day, it's set in the cool urban craft beer world. I've got cool vibey actors in it. It's, shot by a really like cool DP who's, kind of covering it in, hip angles and whatever else. And I just, when I'm working on Frank's stuff and I'm out there, he's just not trying to stack the deck with cool, hip reference points and things going on in a way that, that's sort of like entailed in playing the game a little bit or something. And so I think that his work has, occasionally critically found its champions. It has occasionally broken into major festivals. It has occasionally pulled in some bigger actors. It has occasionally pulled in collaborators like David Lowery, who DP'd one of his features. But it just isn't packaged to run, in urban markets for, 2 or 3 weeks, long enough for, hipster word of mouth to like kind of find it. And that is both what's awesome about it and what is a sort of inherent limiting gatekeeping element to what's going on. And then Frank himself is not really like a hustler, an indie hustler in the way that, in some ways you kind of gotta be to, be navigating, setting up the next project or setting up meetings with executives and all this sort of stuff. So I would sort of say all of that's going on. So it's not, it's like a little bit Frank and it's a little bit the work itself that isn't just like a instant overnight success story kind of thing where he gets into South by Southwest and then a distributor buys it and then, whatever. It just sort of smoothly goes on to the next thing. And then, the real question is sort of like, does he win at the end of the day by sticking to his guns, doing things his way, making his really cool movies? I've never been convinced that Frank won't be the most loved of all of us later. That the work is totally going to hold up. It's, some of the films I think are just great. Tiger Tail and Blue especially, I just think is so fucking good. And, I love 3 or 4 of the others, like just below that at a, super, super high level. Like he's a great, great filmmaker. So I just kind of think like, and hope he's just going to be one of those artists that, just kind of keeps building this groundswell, grassroots wave. And then it's going to meet with a new release of his in a way that it will actually like register and, become a lot easier for him to make movies after that. The way it did for me with Drinking Buddies. It's like you just got to kind of somehow overlap and cross the momentum in a way. And
right.
He's really, really happy about this new one. I just went and did like 1 day on it. So I didn't see a ton of it. I looked at a cut of it and I think it's great. And, he's been working on it since I saw it. So I'm just
so happy he's making a new
totally.
film.
Me too.
Yeah.
So I'm very, very optimistic that this new one will, sort of take the accumulation of his fan base from his whole body of work up till now and give them all a central focus point to kind of, all go see it if it gets indie theatrical release or, push it forward at festivals and things like that. So, and, this is an interesting industry. Careers are long. They're complicated. Mm-hmm. They do not all follow the same path. And ultimately it wouldn't really matter. I mean, if Frank's in his 50s before he really like hits, that's cool. I mean, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And, as long as he's like doing his thing and living his life and staying true to what he's up to, I have no reason to believe the films will not all remain really, really good and continue to each one attract, more and more people.
Cool. Yeah. A friend said to me once that comparison is the thief of joy. And I think that's something I always try to keep in my mind. Like when people, I mean, it's happening right now, or I guess this is coming out in 2 months, but currently when we're recording, it's happening right now with like the Backrooms and Obsessions stuff. Yeah. That's ridiculous, but like,
dude, I think
it's hard not to look at that.
Man,
I'm so happy for both of those filmmakers. I think it's incredible, and I think it's great for the future of film. I was talking to a younger filmmaker the other day who was like, this is really discouraging for me.
Huh.
And I was like, why is it discouraging for you? Like, if anything, it can kind of prove that anyone can do it. And they're like, no, it doesn't really, because this proves that you have to go the YouTube or TikTok route to do it.
No.
And I don't want to do that.
No. That's not true.
That's the conversation I had, and I don't know if there's any
it just
validity
proves
to that.
Just proves the YouTube or TikTok route is as valid as AFI or USC and getting some huge filmmaker to EP your big first feature with a lot of rich people's money, or there's been a lot of first features out of nowhere that have had huge, tremendous success, but it just validates the do whatever path you want route. It's like, to me, it's so cool that these young people just built their own audiences online and then were able to convert those audiences to movie theaters. I mean, it's a win-win situation as far as I'm concerned. And also, it's the best feeling in the world for me still to go sit in a really packed, excited theater on opening weekend. I mean, that is just the stuff heaven is made of. Like, it's just, I was over the moon. And I haven't seen Backrooms yet. I'm going to see it this week, but Obsession is great. I mean,
it's really good.
Oh my God, I like that movie. I just thought it was scary as hell. So creative. Yeah. Those actors are so good. I mean, damn. So I'm all fired up, If that's what the YouTube guys are bringing, count me in. I mean, I am totally on board. So, and Backrooms, as far as I hear and talking to people, I mean, that's essentially got to be the highest grossing experimental film in history. It's like $81 million for like a weird conceptual. I mean, it's so cool. So
it is crazy.
I think it's a great moment. And coming a couple summers after, Greta and Christopher Nolan kind of got people jazzed up about movies again on the total other side of that scale. Like, massive IP or famous historical characters and huge mega budgets and all of that. It's like, I love it. That still works and this works. Both work. Like, so cool. So yeah, I'm stoked. I mean, I think in general, I just think this is the greatest time to be making independent films, No roads or avenues are closed right now. There's just a million routes to streaming, a million routes to theatrical, a million routes to physical media, and all possibilities seem on the table right now. There's no thing that's not working at the moment. It's kind of all working. So I think the next few years are going to be really exciting.
That would be a great note to end off on, but I have 3 more like rapid fire ones I want to get through, and I got to go in a couple minutes. But first off, yes or no, would you recommend making 7 features in a year?
Oh, for sure. I mean, how could it be bad for you?
Right.
Anybody who attempted it would learn so much about themselves in such a short amount of time. And if even one of them was really, really good, you just would have made one really good movie that year. Who cares that you made 6 others,
What's going on with Win It All on Netflix? I can't watch that right now.
Yeah. Well, it's a simple thing, which is that we made the film independently, sold it to Netflix, who branded it as a Netflix original, and then we went through the whole delivery process. Me personally, I went through the whole delivery process imagining that Netflix would just always keep the movie for forever. So, but we did a term for 7 years. So when we closed the deal with Netflix in 2017, it was a 7-year deal. But, we put all the Netflix original title cards on the film and all of that sort of stuff. Those are like baked into the master. Because I was thinking, I'll never need to redeliver this film. If Netflix is going to brand it as original, they'll just keep it forevermore. And then after 7 years, they decided they did not want it on the platform anymore, and the rights came back to us, and I just have not had the time or wherewithal to go back into the project, strip out all the Netflix stuff, change the timing, redo the sound, and get the film ready for redistribution. And nor is anyone like beating down the door trying to make that happen. Like, if
I'm beating down the door.
Okay, well, I sense that. I saw something online recently.
There was a YouTube video about it.
Yeah, someone forwarded me a YouTube video with a dude who was kind of like, what the fuck? Like, this movie disappeared.
Yeah.
And he's right.
And it scared people because they were like, this is the danger of streaming.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
yes. Yeah. I agree. I mean,
I forget that YouTuber's name, but I'll tag that video.
I totally agree with that guy. I was actually very heartened to see that video and to feel that it is, you know, that tangling with the streamers during that era, I really was, you know, potentially locking my stuff up in a closed loop kind of system where, you know, if they decide it's gone, it's gone. But thankfully in this case, it is not lost or anything like that. But it is not currently in a distributable form. So I just need to like re-enter post-production on it and treat it like a going concern again and get everything, you know, cleaned up and refinished. And then I can go looking for, you know, new platforms for it to be available. But what I would like to do with it is make a print of it and travel it around, because we shot it on Super 16 and it would be very cool to strike a 35 print of it and do a little theatrical run, because it never played theaters. It went straight to Netflix, and then, you know, do a Blu-ray and all of that sort of stuff. So I think the fate of the movie, the next like evolution and wave of that movie will be, finally it will get some sort of like 10 years or 15 years later theatrical, and then it will finally get a physical release, and then probably
that's what I wanted to hear.
Time to the physical release, I will also see if any streamers want to take it back.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's very reassuring to hear. And now the last thing, this episode's coming out in a couple months, so I hope I've been doing this up until this point, but I want to start ending the show by asking all the filmmakers I have on, what's the last thing you saw that made you want to make more movies?
Well, I have seen many good films lately. I would say the most recent was probably Obsession, just in getting like fired up and remembering like how fun movies can be. I also thought Weapons did that for me. I just loved Weapons. I thought it was a really, really cool movie. And then prior to that, two things in the last couple years have really like sort of rocked me and jumped out at me. I really liked this bullfighting film that this guy, I think Albert Serra is the director. I think it's called Afternoons of Solitude or something like that. Does this sound familiar to you?
Not to me, but
I watched it on,
sounds cool.
I watched it on Mubi, and it is a very hands-off, observational documentary about a bullfighter and the team that surrounds him. And it follows them during fights and then in the van rides back to their hotel afterwards, and occasionally like in the hotel getting prepped. And it's like far away, wide shots and stuff, like not a lot of editing, very like long static takes and things, but oh God, it is a rough one. I mean, it was, but very, you know, one of those movies that reminds me like, dude, you just gotta like make stuff, you know, you could choose anything as your subject matter and just, you know, the important thing is just to do it and commit to it. And so I really loved that, and I thought that was like very inspiring to watch. And then, it's called like Searching for Mr. Goodbar or Looking for Mr. Goodbar. It's
Looking for Mr. Goodbar.
The guy who directed it did, Goodbye Columbus, the Philip Roth adaptation.
Yeah. Richard Brooks.
Yeah, Richard Brooks. And what's her name is in it? Diane Keaton is in it in like an early major role. Holy shit, that movie is awesome. I mean, I just was blown away. And, you know, I'd heard of the movie over the years. People had recommended it to me, and I don't know why it took me so long to watch it, but Vinegar Syndrome, or one of those partner labels, did a nice new restoration of it. And it completely knocked my socks off. I mean, it sort of reset the high watermark bar. And certainly was like one of the things in my head as I made these two new movies, you know, like I just was like, unless it's that good, I shouldn't even try, you know. It's like, it reminded me like, oh yeah, movies could be like that good. So those are two that I can think of right off the bat that have been really great. And then Obsession also like completely got me jazzed up and stoked about movies again. So yeah, I'm definitely in a productive mode. I mean, I'm very, very much in the mood and mindset to make stuff these days, and I'm seeing a lot of good stuff out there.
All right, Joe. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to be here. I really appreciate everything you've done for the indie film community and for me personally. I can say without a doubt that I wouldn't be a filmmaker without you. So
that's very, very nice to hear. Thank you so much. Yeah, keep doing it. I'm glad you're a filmmaker, and I'm glad I could be helpful along the way. Just keep jamming it out, and thanks for including me and continuing to spotlight my work, because I absolutely need that, and you are the next generation. So thanks for not forgetting me and throwing me out with the trash. You know, I'm happy to be like old Uncle Joe. You know, middle-aged Uncle Joe, still hanging on, making some movies.
Oh yeah, awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I'd like to thank Joe Swanberg for taking the time to have such an in-depth, thoughtful conversation. Check out his film The Sun Never Sets, which premieres in Chicago today and goes wide on September 4th. And if you're in Chicago, check out his video store at the Davis Theater. I'd like to thank Brett and Craig Wright and everyone here at Split Tooth. Thank you to Will Danola for our theme music, and thanks to you for listening. Tune in soon to hear my conversation with Tess Neal and Raskin, a filmmaker whose interview was included alongside Joe's in our newest Split Tooth zine. Make sure to pick up a copy of that in our online store. And like Joe said, go make 13 movies. Talk to you soon.